Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Humanity has long sought to understand what lies beyond the veil of the death. The mysteries that whisper through empty halls and echo across history. Today, on Mission Evolution, we step into that shadowy realm with Larry Lawson, founder of Indian River Hauntings and the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation. A retired law enforcement officer turned scientific paranormal researcher, Larry bridges the gap between evidence and experience, offering a disciplined yet open-minded look at the unseen world. Join us as we explore the energetic fingerprints of consciousness, the persistence of spirit, and what hauntings may reveal about the evolution of the human soul. Right here on Mission Evolution with yours truly, Gwilda Wiyaka. Larry, thank you so much for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Gwilda, it is such a pleasure to be back with you. So good to see you.
It's so wonderful to see you as well. I always love our time together. Larry, you've spent years investigating hauntings across Florida. What first drew you to the world of the paranormal research?
Well, as a law enforcement officer, my main job, as you might say, where I took most of my training was as a detective. So investigating questions, investigating crime is just something that has come natural to me for all of my adult years. So I guess that's where the inquisitive nature comes in. I'm sure I even had it prior to going into law enforcement. So answering these questions that frankly, some of the most perplexing in all of mankind. What happens? Where do we go? Where does the energy that we have on this earth go to when we leave it?
So how has your background in law enforcement prepared you for investigating the unexplained?
Well, for me personally, and I've spoken with other folks, friends of mine in the field, we have an understanding, a structure of how to uncover answers to questions. Who committed the murder? Who broke into the house? There's a process, and that whole process there allows me to conduct investigations in a systematic way, similar to how I would investigate a burglary or even a homicide in some senses. So that's really made my job easier. I think we as a team, myself and my team, have a procedure that allows us to uncover evidence in a proper way, examine it, keep it, preserve it, that type of thing. So law enforcement is truly the backbone of how we conduct paranormal investigations.
What is the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, FBPI, and how does it differ from typical ghost hunting groups?
That's not really a fair question, and I'll answer it this way. All of us are different. I've actually looked at paranormal. There's paranormal investigators, there's paranormal thrill seekers, there's paranormal researchers, if that makes sense. There are folks out there that just like to go out and have some fun, maybe hear the bump in the night and go about their business and not think about it the next day. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people do things for thrills. Why do folks jump out of perfectly good airplanes, for example? And then there's investigators that do investigate, and then there's researchers that try to find the answers to what they're investigating. And I kind of look at my team as being in that third group. We're researchers, investigators that are trying to find the answers. And there's a lot of teams out there like that, as well as other teams that fit into the other categories. We're different because of the law enforcement structure that we put into our investigations, our order, if you will, our structure.
When you enter a location that's said to be haunted, what's your step-by-step process of determining what's really happening there?
Well, for starters, we like to do a background. Now, there's a lot of debate as to whether or not you and the entire team should know what's happening in the house. And that's really not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a history of the property, a history of the venue. When was it built? Who lived there? What activities, what actions, what traumas have taken place there historically? And so we do a full research background on that. We also talk to the folks involved. We try to find out a little bit about their background. And let's face it, there are folks that mean well, but they have other issues in their lives that could perhaps manifest themselves as possible hauntings. So we try to determine all of that up front. And then once we decide we're going to investigate, we go to the venue, we set up our equipment properly, we have a team meeting, we discuss what we're going to do, we break up into teams depending on the size of the venue, and then begin to conduct experiments through the time that we're there.
What equipment do you use?
Equipment's really a funny thing now. Um, we use all the typical things that you'll see. Everything from spirit boxes and portals, EDI pluses, Mel meters, REM pods, the whole 9 yards. But here's the kicker, Gwilda. Man has not yet created a specific piece of equipment that will unequivocally determine that spirits are present. We can get ideas that they are. We can get indications there's something there, but there's not one piece of equipment that'll tell us definitively. We like to use 2 or 3 pieces of equipment, hopefully getting a reaction on all of them for us to get really excited about the information that we're getting. My favorite piece of equipment, since that was actually your question, is a little device called an EDI plus. This EDI plus is a device that measures vibration, electromagnetic fields, humidity, barometric pressure, and you actually sit in a spot and it records it on an SD card. So let's say, for example, we get an EVP off of a recorder or something off of our spirit box, and at the same time a door shuts unexplainably. We pull out the EDI card, this SD card, put it in the computer, and we find out that when those other 2 events happened, at that same time, the barometric pressure may have dropped. The temperature may have risen. Some other unexplained atmospheric condition occurred. Well, now we've got something corroborating the evidence. So that's actually my favorite piece of equipment.
Was it designed for the purpose that you use it, or was it made for something else?
This was designed for this purpose. There's a lot of pieces of equipment out there that have dual uses. For example, dowsing rods, which we use, has been used for centuries to find water. I've had people on my tours, well diggers, that say, yeah, we still use them to find water, and they're very successful. So there's a lot of pieces out there that have dual missions, but the EDI meter is one that actually is purpose built for paranormal investigations.
What's a spirit box?
Spirit box is one of these pieces of equipment that goes through radio frequencies very quickly. And we're trying to find the white noise in the frequencies that it's going through, hopefully hear some words. Now, the problem with the spirit box itself is you do get radio interference. So oftentimes we'll attach a portal or another device to it that will help weed out the radio frequency or radio signals, so that we're just getting voices. And we've been very successful at that, quite frankly.
So you get voices on recordings.
We get voices. Well, recordings. When you get a voice on a recording, that's more of an electronic voice phenomenon, which means you can't hear it, but you get it on either a magnetic or digital recording. That's an issue that finds its roots back in frequency and vibration. One of my favorite topics to talk about in the paranormal. So that's what we get off our recorders. Now, what we're hearing are the voices coming through the radio frequencies. Easiest way for me to put it is radio frequencies are determined by the waves, and the frequency is by the distance between the peaks of each waves. We're trying to find that white noise in the valleys, if that makes sense. It's a simple way to put it.
Well, it's time for us to take a station break. Larry and I will return very shortly, so don't you go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. How do you know it's real paranormal activity? With us this hour discussing researching the dead is Larry Lawson, founder of Indian River Hauntings and the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation. Larry, how Do you separate genuine paranormal activity from natural phenomenon or psychological?
Once again, Gwilda, it goes back to a systematic approach to investigating any question. And the first thing that we're going to do, of course, is doing as we discussed before, a history of the venue and talking to the folks that are involved. Uh, in that case, a lot of times you can weed it out almost right away. And then, of course, when we do conduct an investigation, we do a sweep of the entire area to look for anomalies. For example, um, have you ever heard of the term fear cage? It's a small area that's heavily inundated with electromagnetic fields. For example, a small office that has all the electrical panels in it. High EMF has been proven scientifically to mess with your head, for lack of a better term. It creates anxiety. It creates all kinds of illnesses. And when you've got somebody that's in a small room with a lot of electricity that's buzzing about, and they're complaining of certain things, we might be able to very well explain that their symptoms are nothing paranormal, but a reaction of the body to electromagnetic fields, if that makes sense. So those are the things that we're going to look for. We're also going to look for hot spots where people may be having experiences, but we also find out once again there's a heavy dose of EMF in that area that's causing a physical reaction. Certainly, talking with folks, and this kind of can get difficult. Have they had issues in the past? There was one case in particular where we talked to some folks. My lead investigator and I go out and talk to folks that have called us for help. And we chat with them. When we come to find out that these people were well-meaning and there was no wrongdoing in their heart at all, but they were experiencing some things. But after we spoke with them, we were able to find out that they were under doctor's care, let's say. And we were able to kind of pass it off by saying, have your doctor call us, and if you'd like us to come back, we will. And needless to say that investigation didn't occur, but we were able to do that by just talking with them and finding out what their issues are. And we've had other times. We got called to one house. You might like this story. I got called by the police department in my local area here. The sergeant that knew me said one of my officers that was at the scene of this house where it's been destroyed. They're wanting to kick these people out, but they're saying that something supernatural is putting all the holes in the wall. And while I was there, my officer saw, I think it was a remote control fly past her head. Can you come out and look? So we went out and looked. To make a long story real short, what was happening was a young man with other issues that was putting holes in the wall. And we actually, while they thought an event or told us an event was occurring, we actually Spanky, my lead investigator, was in another room and saw the kid kick a hole in the wall. So it's all background stuff that we try to do. Now, once we have determined that there's no logical answer for what's happening, or we can't explain why the client is having an issue, then we'll investigate and see what we get from there.
Does sometimes the phenomenon come from a person, but is still esoteric, as in not a fist in the wall? Maybe, I guess, poltergeist would be.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah, it was poltergeist. Is it? I think energy is without question a real question in all of this. When I talk to folks about the paranormal, I tell them nobody really knows what this is. Anybody that tells you, they know exactly what this is either lying to you themselves or a little bit of both. And I'm going down this road because people do experience things. Folks that have normal jobs and are healthy have experiences, but sometimes their energy, I think, do create issues. Certainly, the energy that comes from our mind is something that is not understood completely yet. So, could people be experiencing something that their own mind is perhaps generating? I don't think that's out of the question.
You mean as in generating it to happen in physical reality without touching?
Yes, yeah. Let's take, for example, and I know some people disagree with me on this, but I don't think he's ever been really debunked. Uri Geller was his name. Do you remember Uri Geller? Used to bend spoons.
Yes.
Okay. And there's a lot of people that thought he was fake, and there's just as many people that felt the other way. But I don't think he's ever been definitively proven to have been faking what he was doing. But he would bend spoons with his mind. There's other folks that have been able to do things with their mind that people just can't explain. So how can we say that our mind's not capable of creating other issues, other events? Um, the Philip experiment out of Canada in the early 70s is an example of that. They created a guy named Philip, and they conducted an investigation, and Philip answered them, but Philip was their own creation. So is it possible that their own desire, their own need to uncover the other side, that energy maybe brought Philip to life? Very, very quick way on that story. It's really more to that story than that, but it's just a question, is the mind able to create things? And I say yes, my opinion.
Does that make it problematic for you guys to do all the research ahead of time that you do?
But we've got to start somewhere. We don't always know what we're going to run into, and it never hurts to have that research done up front. Until we get to a point in science to determine the actual powers and the depth of the ability of the human brain, we're not really going to have those answers to our full satisfaction, in my opinion.
Can energy imprints or residual hauntings teach us something about consciousness and the human soul?
Wow. Yeah. And it goes along kind of what we were just talking about. Consciousness is a question that I don't think anybody's even has a definitive answer for. Lots of opinions, but I don't think we've gotten a definitive proof of what consciousness really is, or where it comes from, or where it goes. So, now, if you want to talk about it in the context of energy, yes, I think energy can imprint. In a venue, for example, if that's where you're going with this, if that energy can imprint and cause something to happen, I think that's very possible. If I
Do,
got the
go-
question right.
do ghosts or spirits seem to retain personality, emotion, or intent beyond death?
There's evidence of that, yes. We had a little boy in a school local here. Let me back up a little bit. There's a school in Fellsmere, Florida. It's an old school. It's now the city hall. And there's an entity, energy, however you want to put it, in there that we refer to as Billy. And we very clearly, it's on my website, very, very clearly, when one of my guys asked a question, we didn't hear it, it was on a tape. We heard it when we played the tape back. But the question was along the lines of, is this the room you like to be in, Billy? And without question, a little boy's voice came back saying, yes, sir. And I'm telling you, there were no kids in that school that night. I know, because it was me and my team. So here's a little boy that answered us. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. Folks like to look at ghosts as they died, so they're stuck there. That's a fallacy in and of itself. But there's never been a child that died in that school. Never a tragedy, never a traumatic event to the point where a child was severely injured or passed away. Yet here's a child in that school. We've had other experiences with kids in that school, but once again, no child's ever died there. So how are we getting this information on kids? Are they coming back to the school when they were at the age they were happiest at? We don't know, but it made an imprint there. There's something there that we can't explain.
Have you ever encountered an investigation that challenged your personal understanding of life and death?
Yeah, and the school's probably the biggest part of that, because how could kids be there when a child never died there? So that really started to make me think about what's creating this. Is it, once again, is it our own mind? Other people have experienced it. Is it because it's a school we think it's the children should be there, or the children somehow coming back? That challenged my foundational thinking of, you pass on and you come back as Grandma Jones. But Grandma Jones is now 5.
Well,
So that was. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I'm sorry. It's time for us to take a station
Oh,
break.
sure.
Larry and I will be right back to continue our discussion, so stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. What happens to consciousness when we die? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing death and beyond is paranormal investigator Larry Lawson. Larry, do you believe consciousness can leave an energetic signature that lingers after physical death?
Yes, I do. Now that's a personal opinion. I I couch it that way because I think it's important to understand is we don't know the answers yet. I have opinions. For example, may have worked a case. I'm convinced somebody committed this crime, but until I get the evidence to prove it, I can't say they did it in a court of law, if that makes sense. So yes, my personal opinion is that it does leave an imprint, but we're a long way from scientifically proving it. There are folks that have that unique ability to put those two things together. We've got to find a way to uh, take what a medium or somebody that has that talent, that gift, and somehow connect it with a scientific, uh, prove it a scientific way.
That could be a challenge right now, couldn't it?
And it's been a challenge from day one. Uh, I'll tell you right up front, I had a hard time with mediums when I was on the job because I would work a case, homicide, for example, and I would get calls from mediums that would tell me things that just weren't true. So I had a very, very difficult time early on believing it, for lack of a better term. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten wiser, you might say. I've opened my mind and I realize there are things out there we just don't understand. And I have had experiences in recent times with folks that have that gift that have told me that there's more to it than that. There are people that can see and hear things that a lot of us cannot.
Is there a difference between an imprint and a haunting?
Well, if you're talking about what we refer to as a residual haunt, which is the imprinting of energy, I there's two types of hauntings we look at. I'm going to go the long way around to your question here. There's residual hauntings and intelligent hauntings. An intelligent haunting is where something responds to you. Billy in the school is a good example. Is this a room you like to be in? We get a response, yes, sir. Residual hauntings are something it's like on a loop and it plays through and people see this spirit maybe the same time every year. And they're going from point A to point B. You can't get their attention. You can't get them to react to you. We call it residual residual energy being left that's being played back. And if that's what you're referring to as an imprint, yes, I think that is entirely possible. There's been too many sightings of things like that over the centuries to fully say it can't exist because something is existing. And I think imprinting that energy that somehow is replaying itself is a possibility. Now, one of the questions in our field right now is an imprint or residual haunting, is that a ghost or a spirit of the other side? Or is it simply just the energy that's been trapped and something is triggering it to play over? And I think that's another area of research that we've got to spend some time in.
Do you find that the imprint tends to be associated with intense emotion at the time that the imprint was laid down?
Yeah, so I do think that's part of it because that energy is high, and then somehow the ground. Let's take some place that might have I think it's granite that really not granite, quartz that really holds energy. If this area is laden with quartz and a murder happened there, I think that's entirely possible that that energy is somehow stored in some sort of element such as the quartz and can be played back under certain conditions. But then the question is that a ghost or is that just energy?
And is there a difference?
And is there a difference? Exactly.
So, what are some of the most memorable or well documented cases you've encountered through Indian River hauntings?
Oh, wow. I don't even know where to begin with that. Probably one of the most interesting things that have happened in recent times, and this is going on about a year and a half ago now. We got a call from a small store. It was a mystic gems and selling of mystical supplies. They got a call in the middle of the night. Their alarm went off. They got there. They saw some things. The officer who responded said, "You need to talk to Larry Lawson." The officer happened to be my daughter, who was on duty at the time. She's the one that's because heard what was going on. So to make a long story short, we went in and we investigated, and it was very slow at first, and then suddenly we started getting indications of something going on. We actually had a medium, a gentleman that we use out of England. His name's Chris Huff. and he joins us. Crazy as it sounds, it probably won't be crazy to you, but a lot of folks don't really understand this, but came to us via the internet. He was actually with us via the internet. And I had earphones on, so nobody could hear him. But our equipment, Spirit Box, Chris, a couple other pieces of equipment, started reacting at the same time. We got a little girl's name, Belinda or Lindy, came across the Spirit Box. Chris said it about the same time. The equipment is starting to go off. A lot of things were happening. And this is a very long story, so I'm going to cut this a little bit short. We got some very, very interesting information, and we determined that whoever this was had to be a little girl of about 5 that died probably in the late 30s, early 40s. And we were pretty excited about it because this is really definitive stuff coming once again from 3 or 4 pieces of equipment and the medium we had. Had my daughter check the files of the police department, no record of a child dying back then, but in the cemetery who she went to check with, the cemetery superintendent called me and told me of a family that had come out there visiting another gravesite, and they got talking about kids that were buried there. This is before he'd even talked to my daughter. And the guy says, yes, we have a shirt-tailed relative. That's my term. Way back, she died tragically. We don't know how, but her name was Belinda, and she was 5 years old. She died in 1939. And he took me to the gravesite. How does that happen? The gravesite's not even really marked very well. It's got a small stone that you can't hardly do a rubbing on it. Obviously buried there by folks that didn't have a lot of money. But there she was. We couldn't have known that up front. So that's probably, and I'm still working on that one. Still working on that one. Probably one of the most significant investigations we've had. And frankly, it's stuff like that that keeps my blood going for this type of work.
Have you ever captured irrefutable audio, video, or photographic evidence of spiritual activity?
Yes, but let me couch it with this. Whenever you catch something that Billy's voice is probably one of the most significant ones, I know for a fact no child was in that building. I know my people. I know how we do things. But there will be folks out there that'll say, oh, it's just not true. So when you say irrefutable, there's nothing today that we have that can absolutely convince everybody. Somebody will always have a question on it. In my mind, that voice from Billy was irrefutable. The evidence we got in Sebastian, Florida, in the case I just discussed, irrefutable. So those are probably the two that stick out the most. We've gotten a figure in the old Marsh Landing restaurant. I know I've had it checked. I feel that's irrefutable, but there will be folks out there that will question it. They don't know me, and I understand that. I get that, but no question in my mind what those items are.
If you prove something in a court of law, somebody's guilt, it's still refutable, isn't it?
Somebody is. There's a lot of people in prison today that said I didn't do it, even though they got convicted. So yes, you're never going to get to the point where everybody will be convinced of the same answer on anything.
How important is historical research when you're approaching a potential haunting?
It's vital. If you go, I mean, there are some that will argue going in there with a total clean slate will allow you to experience things more cleanly. But I think going in there, understanding what venue you're in and what's gone on there before prepares you to conduct experiments in a way that will allow you to get evidence. I think historical research is very, very important. And let's face it, history is a huge part of this. Understanding your history, loving the history of your area, the venue, very, very important to help you understand what went on there. So I think it's absolutely vital. And I also think that, frankly, I got to throw this in. I think 80% of the time, it's not the building anyway. I think it's the land. My opinion.
Well, it's time for us to take another station break. Please stay with us as Larry and I continue to explore the other side. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Can we contact the dead? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Larry Lawson. Larry, what role does intention or energy alignment play when communicating with spirit entities?
Intention or energy alignment. Energy alignment. Oh, okay. Um, when I think of energy alignment, I'm thinking, and this is just me, energy, vibration and frequency. That's which I think is a very, very important part of all of this. And I'm actually working on some theories right now that, as you'll agree, all life has a vibrational frequency. We all vibrate. We have a frequency, and I believe that there's a connection between when contact is made at that moment, the frequencies align.
Like resonance?
Yes, and I think and that's why they're brief. Why do people never have something? Some people have it all the time. It could just be that their frequency is more aligned, and on other times it happens just briefly, and sometimes it doesn't happen at all. But I really think that alignment is how we are able to make contact and see things. A lot of work to do on that one. And what was the other part of the question? I'm sorry.
Communicating with spirit entities. What importance does that resonance or whatever play with communicating with spiritual entities?
Oh, I said absolutely everything. I think that frequency and vibration is controls everything, and that also explains why some people have it happen more often than others, and some people don't have it happen at all. It's just a question of that alignment happening at the right time, and that leads into the question of then dimensions. Are dimensions crossing over at those specific times, and is that why we're seeing what we're seeing? Are dimensions the issue?
Fascinating stuff.
It is.
Do you suppose that the person's ability, say, for instance, the psychic, is one that has a greater ability to find resonance in any situation?
Yes, I do, and I think that's a big part of it. I love baseball. Would love to have been a major league ball player. I don't have that ability. I can love it all I want. I'll never play Major League Baseball, especially at this age. But my point is, there are some people that have that talent, God given, and for some reason they have that ability. I don't think it's any different for somebody with psychic abilities. Some people just have that tuning, they're more tuned into it than others. And it's just a question of who they are, not a question of good or bad. It's just one can throw a fastball, one can't, if that makes sense.
It does. You can't rely on me for a fastball. Forget it. In your experience, now this goes back to the where are the hauntings located. In your experience, are hauntings more about the place or the people experiencing them? And what I'd like to bring up is what you brought up is you said it has to do with the earth.
Yeah, I think it can be all of the above. I've had instances in investigations, and frankly, some of my historical tours that I'm on, where people get a connection, and it's with somebody they love, and they shouldn't be there. Why should they be there? They've never been in Florida, but here that person, there's some indication or evidence they're contacting them. So in that case, it's the person that may be bringing them in. Anybody that says that if we want to talk that ghosts are what we traditionally think they are, they don't just stay in one place because that's where they died. They go where they want, when they want, how they want, in my opinion. Um, so a lot of times it can be the person that brings them in. Structure, sure. I think structures can be an issue simply because energy can be trapped in wood, can be trapped in certain in some of the elements of a building that can cause that to hold some stuff in. And we go back to that earth thing again. I really think a lot of the time it's the land.
The crystalline structures in the land, or how about water, that sort of thing?
Water, definitely water, definitely crystals in the ground, certain types of rocks. I think science has proven, like I said, we were talking about quartz a few minutes ago. Uh, Quartz holds energy. Well, why wouldn't it? Who are we to say what energy it can and can't hold? We don't know all those answers yet. So I think that does have a big part of it,
Fascinating field, isn't it?
and not enough time to talk about it all either.
So, how does your work with Indian River Hauntings promote public education rather than sensationalism?
Great question. And that's a tough thing because I do historical tours. First of all, I love to talk, you can tell. And I love to talk about history. And our tours spend a lot of time. Yes, we talk about the legends. We talk about some of the things my own team has uncovered, but we talk a lot about the history. In the book that I wrote, Haunted Indian River County, for example, probably one of the most important parts of that is folks that have lived in this area for their whole lives have come up to me and said, I didn't know that. Don't mean the ghosts, but they mean the history. So I think that's the service that I try to present, as well as showing people the realistic side to what paranormal research is about. It's not what you see on TV, and I'm not knocking the TV shows, but it's not what it is on TV. And a lot of people, heck, cop shows. Like if I had a nickel for every time somebody asked me, well, you got a fingerprint, can you tell me who it is? That's not how it works. But TV tells people that. Same things happened with the paranormal shows. So we try not to sensationalize. On the flip side of it, when I'm doing a tour, I get energized, and I get excited about talking about certain things. So in a sense that, there is a uh, performance side to it. But when you sensationalize, you make things up, you say things that are kind of exaggerated, or you flat out lie about events just to get people interested. That's a problem, and there is too much of that out there.
Do you feel it's distorted our view, the public view on paranormal investigation?
Another great question. The answer is yes and no. Yes, it does. Once again, it's TV. And if these shows did not have something happen during that hour that just wowed people, they wouldn't watch them. You're seeing a huge decline in a lot of the TV shows now. There are a lot popping up on YouTube, but a lot of the network stuff's gone. It's just they're just not getting enough exciting stuff. So it's hurt in that sense. On the flip side of it, there are many people. I've got some of my team that have become interested in the field because of what they saw and they wanted to know more. So the TV shows, the entertainment side of it has actually brought a public awareness of it that has expanded the field. Now, and there's always good to bad in that, but I really feel that it's brought some people forward and got some folks interested in the field that are sincere about finding what the answers are.
What advice do you give people that believe their house is haunted?
The first advice I tell them is it's your house. You have dominion over your house. And make sure whatever you think's bothering you knows it. Um, from there, we can go to maybe have a religious type of person, a priest, rabbi, come to the house, bless it. And there's been plenty of times I've requested folks, maybe you need to talk to your physician about issues.
Or
And
get back
that's a
on your meds, right?
well, yeah, I'm a little more delicate than that, but yeah, because that can be an issue. The worst thing you can do is tell somebody, "I'll solve your problem." We can't solve your problem. Nobody, there's very few people that have the ability to cleanse a house appropriately. Worst thing you can do is tell people you can do something that you can't, or tell them something's there that you can't prove. So you must be honest. That includes saying sometimes, I think this is the issue, and I think this is how you can address it. Going to the doctor, maybe getting all those electronics out of this small room that you're working in all day, things like that.
Pretty good advice, it sounds like to me. Well, Larry, it is that magic moment. Unfortunately, our time together is coming to a close.
Way
Thank
too
you.
quick.
Thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thank you for having me, Will. I look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely. And we will.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Larry, this has been Mission Evolution with host Gwilda Wiyaka and guest Larry Lawson, founder of Indian River Hauntings and the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation. To learn more about Larry's research, tours, and investigations, visit IndianRiverHauntings.com. For more information about Mission Evolution Radio TV or to enjoy past archived episodes, visit missionevolution.org. Please be sure to join us again next time as this mission continues, bringing information, resources, and support to our rapidly evolving world.